talk to Glenn Sather, and we decided that I made a trip to Betty Ford, which probably one of the best things that happened in my life, where I got a chance to look at myself and appreciate everything I had done, everything I'd gone through, and everything my parents were proud of. And that was the biggest thing, and that was the hardest thing, is to look at yourself and realize that you had to find something that you loved. And I'd forgotten to love myself. I missed the part about you have to love yourself. And sitting down with Glenn, and to this day, I still sit down with him once in a while, and we'll sit and chat. And it was a huge part of my life to just, I had to find a love for myself. And that's what turned everything around for me.
It's very dark. My childhood was very dark. Being passed from home to home, being abused, and still having a little hope and dreaming of hope. But there comes a point, even that stops. That's the danger zone. And you don't know if there's gonna be a tomorrow. It's just that cruel moment of when you realize there is no hope. That tears at me, but it doesn't tear at me anymore because there wasn't. I hung on just long enough to come out the other side. And here I am. Look at me, all beautiful and stuff.
I would go back in the time when Jesus Christ was being crucified. And first of all, I would try to help him in any way possibly that I could. And I would ask him to come with me. Back to early 2023 to save my son's life. If he possibly could tell me anything I could have done or our family could have done to save my 36-year-old son from passing away of a heart attack.
They sent down, there were six or eight, troopers that went through trooper school with my dad, and they were pallbearers for my dad's funeral. And I remember one of the high-ranking officials from the state patrol came and spoke at my dad's funeral. Dad's name was Harold Lloyd. He said, I don't know, excuse me. He said, as I stand here today in front of all of you, I don't know who Harold Lloyd's best friend is or who his best friend was. He said, but I know there's several people here today who consider Harold Lloyd their best friend. And, it just, man, I tell you, boy, it just hit me in a way that nothing ever had about that someone, would say that about, my dad.
And we got back on our feet again, substantially in a financial way. And I really owe it to that young lady, Amanda, who's become a family friend now. But she told me her story again about her and her dad, but she also said, by the way, I'm getting married. My father passed away. She's an only child. Her mother had passed away. She didn't have any family. And she asked me to walk her down the aisle. That's the part that changed. And that was like 2000.
So all about family, and I can tell you, my friend, your presence is a present.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you. And hey, if there's anything I can do for you going forward, I'm here. You just call me.
One night, my dad came upstairs and said, "You're in trouble. You're in trouble, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." And he brought my mother up, said, "Millie, come up." And they just held me. There was no judgment. They decided to send me away to my cousin's house and have the baby and have it adopted. I did not have a choice. A few years later, I met Mr. Bueller. We got married, and I got pregnant. The doctor said, he's coming out. Reach down. And I reached down and I pulled him out of my body and put him on my chest. And it was just, the whole story was just perfect.
My journey in Vietnam was fortunate. I did not get wounded. But I was blessed, and so fortunate and to make it back from what was historically a horrible situation. And we get off the plane and we go down this corridor, and at the end of the corridor was my mother, my father, and my sister and her husband and their dog Barney, a little Cocker Spaniel. And my sister's husband let the dog go, and the dog came running to me and embraced me. And that was the happiest day of my life. And it,
Well, I want to say that I concur with my friend Mark Henry. There's nothing more valuable than friendship, and I'm glad I made a new friend. You are awesome. Did you have a good time, my friend?
Wow. Okay, so I wouldn't have agreed to do this had I known you were going to make me cry.
And I told my dad that I am now in the Hall of Fame, Dad. Unfortunately, it was kind of bittersweet because my wife had been in a car accident and she was in the hospital. Hall of Fame, I wanted to be represented as a Chicago Cub. Flew home the next day, and unfortunately, Marianne didn't make it because of pneumonia. The doctors just couldn't save her. Complications, even success on one end, would be bittersweet on the other end. And I had to learn to cope with the fact of losing a wife, which was pretty devastating.
The one person that was in my way was Mark Smith because I had to make a decision. Mark was a partier. Mark liked to dabble in drugs. We moved off campus our second year and we actually moved to a trailer park. Like, he would never be able to convince me to do drugs. He would never be able to convince me to hang out all night. I wasn't worried about that. What I was worried about was that I needed to put all my energy into graduating and getting out of that school and having a great opportunity to make the NBA. So as we left Illinois, I got my degree, I went on and drafted into the NBA. He didn't make the NBA, but he went over to Europe. And this is where it's tough for me because I look back at this and I say, Eddie, did you do the right thing? Because I could have carried both of us. They said, well, the doctor told him that if he takes one more drink, he'll die. He took that one more drink and he passed away in Illinois. I have a relationship with his daughter. I've gotten to know her. She played in the WNBA for a couple of years. And she called me one day and she said, Eddie, tell me about my dad, because she never knew him. And that was one of the hardest things for me because I had to tell her. I told her everything. And she said to me, she said, that's what I wanted to hear.
Like I said, she was a single parent and she worked so hard. And to make sure we was all great and what we needed, we always had the latest gear, anything that we needed for our sport, our schooling, anything like that. She's always been there. I had my first real injury where I tore my hip labor, and my mom was on the next flight out, and I ended up having surgery. The following week, she stayed with me for about a month and a half. Cried on her shoulder because it was my first real surgery. She was there at every track meet that I had. She's the reason why there is a Brittany Reese, and the reason why I am the Olympic gold medalist that I am today.